What data convince biologists that the theory of evolution by natural selection is correct? Some of the strongest indications of evolution are things that anyone can observe without rigorous experimentation. Darwin noticed early on that similar species are often found in the same regions. And anyone can observe for themselves how similar we are to other animals. Darwin repeatedly referred to evolution as descent with modification. The theory of evolution by natural selection makes two predictions about the nature of species. We've seen that species change through time. Now let's explore how species are related by common ancestry. Data from the fossil record and from contemporary species both refute the hypothesis that species are immutable. What about the claim that species are created independently, meaning that they are unrelated to each other? Darwin began to realize that species are related by common ancestry during a 5-year voyage aboard the HMS Beagle. While exploring and mapping the coast of South Africa, the Beagle spent a few weeks in the Galapagos Islands. Darwin was the first scientist to study the area, so he gathered extensive collections of the plants and animals there. Most famous among the birds he collected were the Galapagos finches and the Galapagos mockingbirds. Several years after Darwin returned to England, a colleague suggested that the mockingbirds collected on different islands were actually distinct species based on differences in coloration and beak size and their shape. This struck Darwin as remarkable. Why would species that inhabit neighboring islands be so similar yet clearly distinct? It turned out to be a widespread pattern. In island groups across the globe, it's routine to find similar but distinct species on neighboring islands. Darwin realized that this pattern was difficult to reconcile with the paradigm of special creation, but it actually made perfect sense when interpreted in the context of evolution. The mockingbirds were similar because they had descended from the same common ancestor. This ancestral species colonized different islands, changed over time in response to their new environments, and ultimately branched off into new species. Recent analysis of DNA sequences in these mockingbirds support Darwin's hypothesis. Researchers have used the DNA sequence comparisons to place the mockingbirds on a phylogenetic tree, a branching diagram that describes the ancestor-descendant relationships among species or other taxa. The Galapagos mockingbirds are each other's closest living relatives, and they share a single common ancestor. When biologists first began to study the anatomy of humans and other vertebrates, they noticed remarkable similarities in skeletons, muscles, and organs. As advocates of special creation, they could not explain why these similarities existed among certain organisms but not others. Today, biologists recognize homology as a similarity that exists in species because they inherited the trait from a common ancestor. Translated literally, homology means the study of likeness. Human hair and dog fur are homologous. Humans have hair and dogs have fur because they share a common ancestor, an early mammal species that had hair. Homology can be recognized and studied at 3 levels: genetic, developmental, and structural. Each of these levels interacts with the others. Genetic homology occurs in DNA nucleotide sequences, RNA nucleotide sequences, or amino acid sequences. For example, the eyeless gene in fruit flies and the Inaridia gene in humans are so similar, their protein products are 90% identical in amino acid sequence. Both genes act in determining where eyes will develop.